Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the latest update of the Hockey Writers ranking of the top 100 NHL prospects. It's a piece, for those who don't know, that we update twice a year, once in the offseason, once mid-season, just to take a look at where all of the prospects, drafted prospects, kind of line up at the moment. So I'm your host, Logan Horn, and today I am joined, as always, by my co-hosts and fellow prospect analysts, Matthew Zator and Peter Baracchini. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We got hockey this month. We're going to start watching some preseason. We got rookie camps. We got rookie tournaments all across the NHL. So that's exciting. It's like, 5 days away from starting a lot of these. So from when we're recording this, at least, but it's coming. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's feeling real. Like we were talking right before the show that Traverse City Prospect Tournament, which a handful of teams send some prospects to, starts just later this week. And yeah, like you said, training camps are coming up, and then NHL preseason. We've got a ton of other preseason starting in different leagues, and some leagues have started already. So there's hockey to watch again, which is exciting. It feels like we had such a long season with nothing. Now it feels like there's a lot all of a sudden, and there's more coming. So I'm excited too. Peter, how are you doing today?
Yeah, echoing that sentiment. Just glad that we're getting to see some actual game time, some actual play time, and all that. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm excited for the season.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, with that out of the way, let's just get into this, because this article is a bit of a doozy. It's a big one. It's a big piece of work that lots of time and effort goes into twice a year. So please check it out. Also, if there's a player on this or if there's a player that's missing from this list, make sure that one, they're not a goalie, because that is a separate list, which we'll be talking about next week on this podcast. And also just make sure you check out the criteria that we're working with for prospects here. I don't have it all off the top of my head, so just check it out. And if they're not on the list, it's probably because they're a goalie or because they don't qualify as a prospect for the list. Or I hate your favorite team and your favorite prospects are trash. That's always possible. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, it can be pretty easy for us on shows and episodes like this, especially, to focus on the players at the very high end. But you've heard us talk too much about them already. So we're going to try to make our way through the whole top 100. I'll just be coming to each of you to see a player you're interested in each group of 10 as we go from 100 to 1, just so we hopefully spread out some of the attention on some guys that get a little bit less shine on this show, maybe. All right, so I think that's all I need as a rambling out of the gates here. And now it's officially your guys' chance to grind my gears on any of these things you completely disagree with. You can call out guys you agree with or disagree with, or just prospects you like, whatever your plan is here. But we're gonna get started, going from numbers 100 to 91. Who's someone in that range? Matt, I'll come to you first. Someone that you're interested there.
Well, I mean, this first 10, there's quite a few prospects that I really like, and I'm going to focus on Elmer Soderblom, the 100th prospect on this list, and he's close to actually graduating. I thought he was going to graduate last season because he played so well at the beginning. They got hurt, went down to the AHL, and didn't come back up after that. Really good, right out of the gate for the Red Wings, playing on a line with Oscar Sundqvist and Michael Rasmussen. They're like what they call them, the Redwood line.
The Redwoods.
Yeah, Redwoods. They're so massive.
Yeah, the average for the line was like 6'5" and like 230 pounds or something. Like, it was nuts.
Yeah, so they're all tall guys, and unfortunately, he didn't get to play the whole season. played in the AHL after that injury. But he's got so much potential. I mean, that size alone, that 6'8", 249-pound frame, really tough to play against, and probably going to be a really good guy to, be in front of the net on the power play. But he also's got a lot of skill, a lot of, really great hands. And for such a big guy, he looks like he's like 5'10", the way he moves around and with his hands. So I'm really excited to see him playing the NHL full time, because I'm assuming he's going to be, I don't know. I mean, this season there's just so many players on the Red Wings that I don't know if Soderblom's going to get a chance to play with them off the hop opening night lineup. But I really am excited to see him as a full-time NHL player, because that potential was already flashed at the beginning of the season. So yeah, Soderblom, very exciting to watch, and I'm assuming he's not going to be on this list very much longer.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assumption there. I don't think he'll stick around. Great pick. He's a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever seen a player like him, because if you see someone that size, usually they're a goon who can't skate. But he's massive and he has skill, and he's a bit of a unicorn in the NHL, and I think could be a really fun one to watch for a decade or so if he can get up to the pace of NHL play fully and stay healthy. Peter, what about you? Who's someone in this 100 to 91 range that you'd like to give some attention to?
That's Nathan Gauthier at 92 with Anaheim Ducks pick. Obviously a little bit of a shock where they took him in the first round in 2022, but considering all the high offensive upside players that they were still on the board, Gauthier is the complete opposite. He's not going to wow you out with the points or the skill that he has, but his smarts and awareness away from the puck and his defensive game is just absolutely phenomenal for his age. And he already has that down packed. And that's what's going to make him a strong, competitive, two-way defensive-minded center that could be used in maybe second power play, but first and foremost in a penalty kill situation when the game is on the line to defend the lead. You're going to want him out to win a face-off, get in the lanes, block shots, and everyone's going to point to the fact that he probably had 46 points in 44 games, down from the 57 that he had last year, but he did miss a good chunk of games as well, made up for it in the playoffs where he was just under a point per game. But, Memorial Cup champ, best defensive forward in the QMJHL champ, World Junior Gold. He also earned a lot of minutes there and a lot of responsibilities. I'm interested to see how he's going to adapt to the AHL level. I think it's huge for any prospect, but considering that he already has that physicality, the stature, and the maturity already, I think that's going to bode well for him, because he already has the qualities that makes him so special. Like, he's already excelling at that, and I want to see him do that at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Nathan Gauthier fan. The only reason I don't have him significantly higher on this list is that I don't see him being much more than like an amazing third line center in the NHL, which is super valuable. And I think he'll be a fan favorite and he'll be an important player for Anaheim. It's just there's some players with higher potentials, and by some I mean I guess 91. but I'm a huge Gauthier fan, and the center group that Anaheim has built is just insane. For him to be like your fourth best young centerman at the moment is incredible. It's a really good problem to have. So I'd be pretty happy with him if I was a Ducks fan. All right, let's keep moving to the 90 to 81 range. So Peter, I'll come to you first on this one. Who do you want to point out from this group here?
Yeah, I'm going to be a homer this time, and I'm going to take Nick Robertson, 86. As you mentioned, as I've mentioned, as even Matt's mentioned, when we all did these top 100s in the past, it seems like, this going to be the year for him to try and break out, try and get going. And it seems like every single time he starts to make an impact, he's derailed by injuries, whether it was his rookie season, whether it was last season where he had the shoulder injury, he was starting to get those top 6 minutes. And it just seems like he takes one step forward and it's like 2-3 back, but it's not as a result of his play, his overall game, because he has the shot, the speed, the tenacity that the Maple Leafs valued. But you would start to wonder if maybe this is the last chance for him, not just as a prospect, but to get a chance and win a spot on this team because, they have Matthew Nyes. I know he's going to be further up on the list later on. Fighting for a top 6 spot right now. You brought in, Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi with the signings to fill out that left side. Is there going to be a spot for him? Can he go above and beyond? I think that's just going to be key for him because he has the skill, he has the mindset, the offensive capabilities. It's just staying healthy, and I think that's what's going to come down to it for the Maple Leafs and for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a healthy Robertson will be a good player for Toronto. It's just that hasn't been an option for a long time, and we're going to need to see it for an extended period of time in order for me to be a believer for much longer. But I'm a believer for now. You kind of have to balance all of that in being a Robertson fan. But I think he'll make it work. He's just got to get healthy. He's really just got to stick it out for a while. And I hope he can get that soon. Matt, what about you? Who's someone you want to point out in this 90 to 81 area here?
Well, Lekkerimaki's in here, but I'm gonna not, folks. We did a whole Vancouver Canucks prospect episode,
Sure.
So go back there if you want to. You know how I like Lekkerimaki. He's having a really good preseason in the SHL right now. So, but I'm gonna focus on Jaden Perron in this section because this is another guy. The Carolina Hurricanes, they got 2 prospects in this 10 with Nadeau as well. But for a team that finishes high in the standings all the time. Seems to get some really good prospects in the draft, and Jaden Perron's one of them. Undersized, but a very good play driving winger. Lots of talent. 5'9", but I mean, doesn't look like he plays at 5'9" because he's I talked about a massive guy. I'm talking about a smaller guy now, but we talked about him a lot during this past draft year of how good of a player he is and whether he'd go in the first round or be able to, drop down. And he ended up dropping down because where the Hurricanes got him. But very, very exciting player to watch. And I think he's going to end up being a very good player for the Hurricanes. And they seem to just be able to get these gems in these drafts. And, he's going to just be another one of them.
Yeah, it might just be next up. I'm a big Perron fan as well. I mean, I think we all are, all 3 of us. After this last year, he had an amazing draft season. I just think the biggest reason he's not higher for me is that you don't see very many players like him in the NHL that are that small, 5'8", 5'9", aren't the best skaters. He's not bad by any means, but when you're that size, usually you have to be an exceptional skater. You don't always, which is why I think he's got a shot. Yeah, he's just someone who I need a larger sample size against better and better players before I can get too confident about that. But
it's also how much his skill can outweigh the fact that he can get pushed off the puck easily. Yeah, he relies on that, and that's why he's able to try and evade tough situations. But in the instance where he's not able to, obviously the weight factor, he needs to bulk up, get more strength into his game. If he's able to do that, then I think he's going to be in a good spot. But that strength and how much of that skill is going to, get him out of tough situations, I think is going to be key.
For sure. This article hasn't even been out for 2 weeks when we're recording this. But someone I'll just mention that, Matt, you briefly mentioned, that maybe has risen already since I released this article is Lekkerimaki, 82 here. He's someone who's been really hard to place ever since being drafted, just because he had such a strange year last year. But yeah, he's been lighting it up in the SHL playoffs, playing up or SHL preseason, not playoffs. He's just been kind of up and down the lineup as they're just figuring out their lines, but he has scored several goals already, and he's looking pretty good. He's looking healthy. He's looking like the player we saw in the playoffs at the end of last year, more than the one that started the season pretty slow. So he's someone to keep an eye on. He could rise back up this in the next edition. All right, we're going to keep momentum going here. 80 to 71. Matt, I'll come to you first on this one. Who do you want to talk about here?
Oh, this is a tough group because I have so many guys that I like in here. I'm going to focus on Joshua Roy, Montreal Canadiens, because actually, no, I'll pick someone else because Montreal we did focus on just not that long ago too. So I'll go Brad Lambert with the Winnipeg Jets, and he's a guy that again started in the AHL this past season. Played okay. Didn't have a dominant AHL season, but then got sent back to the WHL, and that's when he kind of looked like the player that was drafted in the first round. Seattle Thunderbirds, I mean, Matt, they're such a loaded team, but he was one of their better players as well. And we all know how skilled he is. Can he translate that to the NHL? Yet to be seen because he hasn't really had a lot of time. But the AHL, like I said, he looked fine, but you'd want him to kind of look a bit more of a standout player in that league. And he's starting to, I mean, WHL, he dominated, which is a good sign. We'll see what happens this season if he has a full season in the AHL and hopefully maybe some time in the NHL because they do have some spots. The Jets do have some spots in that bottom six that he could potentially surprise in training camp and make the roster. I don't know if that I feel able to do that, but we'll see. But he's got so much skill to be able to be, his ceiling is a top six guy. Top six center, and with the Jets in kind of a transition, we don't know if Mark Scheifele is going to be there much longer. Lambert's going to have a chance to be, a second line center at least, hopefully a first line center, but we'll see. I think Lambert is still going to end up being a really good NHL player, but all the talk we had in his draft year of being, a top 5 pick and ended up dropping quite a bit. But I'm still excited for his potential in the NHL.
Yeah, absolutely. This year was a kind of a strange one for him, just doing a lot of different things, but definitely a positive finish, just tearing up the WHL. It was the first time in several years that we saw him play against his own age group, and he looked excellent. He looked great. So hopefully, switching back to pro hockey next year, he can keep that momentum going a little bit because that's the first time he's scored at a star level in a very long time because he's played at super high levels as a young player. So hopefully that can kind of help boost his confidence again a little bit. We can see the Brad Lambert we all thought we were going to get at the start of his draft year. Hopefully that's the Brad Lambert we see coming up again. Peter, your turn here. 80 to 71. Who's someone you'd like to bring up here?
From one Winnipeg Jets prospect to the other, which is just one spot up, that's Rucker McGroarty. And you know how much of a big fan I am of his, and not just because he has the best name at the moment.
Excellent name.
But no, just the overall skill set that he brings. He is basically, they drafted, I believe, Chaz Lucius the year before. But now with Rucker McGroarty into the fold as well, he kind of has that high intensity work ethic that makes him such a really intriguing prospect for the Winnipeg Jets. He kind of plays that style already. And, he's got the shot, he's got the awareness, he's got the work ethic, he's got the ability to just, get in on the attack and just dominate everybody that comes in his way. 6'1", 205 pounds. He's got the frame. He's already got that going. And also, a point per game in his, freshman year at the University of Michigan on a very stacked team, mind you. That's very impressive. But now that there's going to be a roster turnover right now, with him in the fold, with him, with, Frank Nazar, Gavin Brindley, Nick Moldenhauer, Seamus Casey already on this University of Michigan team. They're going to be the ones to try and carrying the offensive load right now. And McGroarty is going to be the one to lead that charge because he's definitely that, high-end character, high work ethic, high skilled guy that's going to do a lot of damage for this team. But even as in the case if he's a Winnipeg Jet down the line, because he's definitely like Matt said, could Brad Lambert take a spot or be the next Mark Scheifele? I think they have more certainty with that with McGroarty at this point than Lambert because still some question marks revolve around him as opposed to McGroarty.
Sure, that's fair. They're very different players, but I like Lambert and McGroarty for the Jets. It does feel like they have a little bit of a type when you see McGroarty and Colby Barlow in back-to-back seasons. These just high character leader types who work very hard and play defense very hard. In the case of McGroarty, maybe he doesn't have elite offense. Maybe he won't be a high end scorer in the NHL someday, but he is going to lead by example. He's going to work real hard on and off the ice. And he's a real character fit, someone that you kind of want to help establish maybe a bit of a different culture. Winnipeg has had a reputation for having a ton of high-end forwards over the last decade, maybe, but also having some struggles with that, with consistency and work ethic and stuff like that from that same group. So maybe a bit of a reset here with Blake Wheeler out, longtime captain, and possibly a few more out the door soon. Pierre-Luc Dubois is gone, but who knows? There could be even more turnover coming, and these guys are definitely going to be the future of that forward group. Lots to look forward to. All right, now we're up to 70 to 61. We're getting close to the halfway point here. Still, like, we're in the lower half of this list, and there's still a ton of talent here. Like, it's crazy. There's a lot of great prospects in the hockey world right now. And as we get higher, it's just going to get more ridiculous that we have all this talent. So, Peter, I'll come to you first on this one. 70 to 61. Who do you want to talk about here in this group?
I really want to talk about my guy Brandon Othmann again. I'm a huge fan of his, but considering how the New York Rangers prospect pool is not necessarily depleted, like you have some good quality, he's a high-end name that's just standing out every single time that you watch him play or any other Rangers prospect play, because he's making a difference every single time he's out there. He's pesky. He plays a pace. He's got the shot. He likes to get under the opponent's skin too. We've seen him do that quite a bit, especially at the World Juniors, where he kind of likes to taunt the opponent a little bit. And I'm a big fan of that. And the fact that he's not letting it, let it take control over his offensive game. He's got that balance. And the fact that he's still going strong right now, the fact that he's going to the Peterborough Petes again to try and rebuild that, championship team again that they had, maybe repeat, who knows, but we'll see what happens, because he definitely has a lot of upside and he's a top prospect for them for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've had a lot of turnover in their prospect pool from the time that he joined until now, but Othmann is still a legit prospect here for them. And every time I feel like, I don't know if Othmann has been, I just, for some reason, the back of my brain, I'm like, Othmann he's an all right prospect. And then I go and watch him play, or I see him in the playoffs or for Team Canada, and I'm like, wow, I'm sleeping on Othmann every time I'm not currently watching him play. So I appreciate, Peter, I appreciate your passion for Othmann's game, because it's kept me in check a little bit there, and I like that. Matt, what about you? Someone from this 70 to 61 range you'd like to chat about?
I'm going to talk about a guy I talked about quite a bit during his draft year at number 62, Mackie Samoskevich, also called Matthew Samoskevich. So
I see.
There you go. Yeah.
Team Matthew.
He's super skilled forward. Florida Panthers got him. And I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't able to drop further where the Canucks could have possibly got him. Who knows? But he's a very, very skilled guy. He played, of course, for Stack University of Michigan team. Also played in the AHL this past season as well. 6 points in 9 games, not bad for a debut in the AHL. And this season he'll probably have a full year there, and potentially play some even in the NHL with the Florida Panthers. And one thing about the Panthers is they don't have a really high end prospect pool, but Samoskevich is probably one of their best ones. I loved him during his draft year just because of how smart he is and how skilled he is, and his character is really high as well. So I'm really excited to see him in the NHL with the Panthers at some point here.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think he has gone a little under the radar in his draft year, definitely, but then this last year, he had a pretty big role on the University of Michigan, but definitely eclipsed by some guy you might have heard of, Adam Fantilli. I don't know if you guys recognize that name or not. But it's tough to get much attention when you're playing behind that guy. But Samoskevich had a great season and good looking pro at the end of the year. So I'm with you on this one, Matt. I hope we see him. Hope we see him shine soon. I want to mention from this group someone who could be rising a lot in the next section of this. The next update is Edward Shala, someone we talked about a lot during this last draft cycle. He was kind of all over the place, well, performance-wise and rankings-wise, but was on a fairly consistent slide through most of the year. He had a great Hlinka Gretzky Cup before his draft season started, and then didn't really do a whole lot to prove that he could stay in like a clear top 10 level. He's got the talent, just the consistency wasn't there, and he was playing in a tough pro league as a teenager, so that's worth noting. He is actually coming across to play in the CHL this year. He is in North America, and he scored on his first shot on his first shift of his first preseason game. So watch out. He might be ready to just absolutely torch Canadian junior hockey. We're all like, oh, I don't know if he's that great. He was not amazing in a really hard league against grown men. And then now he comes and plays against his own age group, and he's just going to make us all look silly, probably. So Edward Shaw is someone to pay attention to this next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's significantly higher next time, honestly, if he can keep that up. All right, let's wrap up the bottom half of this list here with 60 to 51. And Peter, I'll come to you first on this one. Who's someone from numbers 60 to 51 you want to point out here?
Going with another Anaheim Ducks draft pick, and that's Tristan Luneau, 56 on your list. And, you know, I think this is a fair spot for him, considering in his draft year, he didn't quite have the production that many had hoped for. 43 points in 63 games. I mean, that's still pretty good. But there was a lot of questions about his offensive upside, and also he dealt with a little bit of inconsistencies. But this past season, you know, that this is the production that many wanted to see. 83 points in 65 games, high-end playmaker. He's very smart in transition. He's great at identifying lanes, passing, open ice when he's, you know, carrying the puck through the neutral zone. He's very, very smart. And the fact that he like dropped as far as he did, I still think that there is a lot of potential, because when I saw him, there was still something that needed to like happen. I wanted to see more, but I felt that at some point he was going to pop off, which is why I thought he would be a late second or late first, early second kind of pick. And now we're seeing it. He's just very, very creative with the puck and his decision-making and his playmaking. He's very, very solid. And we talk about all the defensemen that the Anaheim Ducks have right now. I think he's going to be a very steady addition to them. Despite him not being the marquee name, he's going to be very important for them in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Luneau is not likely to be the flashiest offensive creator in the NHL. But when you have the other guys that Anaheim does have on the back end, you can live with that. They've got Olin Zellweger already. Like, you don't need two of those. I mean, you'd be happy with it, but you don't need to. And Luneau is a great player in his own right, who I agree. Like, I was kind of waiting on something to really pop. And I think he really did that, especially the last half of last year, but most of last season entirely. And I can really see him as an NHL defender, probably as high as a second pairing, considering how good that group is. Maybe on a bad team, he could be a first pairing guy, but that's not where I think he'll thrive. But I could see him getting pretty high into the lineup in just a few years here. So I'm a big Luneau fan as well. Matt, I'll come to you here. Last group of the bottom half of this list, 60 to 51. Who do you want to call out here?
I'd go with Brock Faber at 52. Minnesota Wild, used to be LA Kings prospect, but was traded to the Wild, and he's already made an impact in the NHL. No points yet, but he just looks at home. He looked at home in the NHL, and not just in the regular season. He played 6 playoff games as well. And, the pressure of that, pressure of those games, and he looked fine. He looked calm. He looked cool, really good defensively. That's usually what he's been known for. I think he's got a lot more offense to give in his game, because on the Minnesota Wild season preview show, I predicted him to lead the points on defense, which was a bit of a bold prediction by me, but because he hasn't really, of course, has any points in the NHL yet. But I do think he has a lot more of that. Very good, going to be a very good two-way defenseman. A leader on that back end that lost Matt Dumba in the offseason. Could potentially fill his role very well. And I'm really excited to see Faber in his first full season in the NHL this year.
Yep, I agree 100%. Big Faber fan here. I agree also with like Dumba moving on makes just kind of this perfect position for Faber to kind of pull into here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he really starts to take on those extra minutes throughout this next season, if he doesn't start with them right off the bat, which is possible. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break here at the halfway point, but we'll be right back after a quick word from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
All right, so we're going to jump back into the top half of this list with numbers 50 to 41. And Peter, we'll come to you first on this one. Who do you want to call out from 50 to 41?
Number 48, Braden Yager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. All eyes are going to be on him because the Pittsburgh Penguins basically have nothing in their prospect pool. I mean, they do have Owen Pickering, they do have Samuel Poulin, but they don't have as much upside as Yager does. And, you know, how long does Crosby have? How long does Evgeny Malkin have? They need to build up the middle. And Yager has that, smart. Obviously, he's not going to be that generational talent like Crosby was, but just as smart, just as skilled, very smart away from the puck as he is with the puck. He's got a lot of potential, and Logan, you just his reporter that you did for him, transitional game, defensive play, and wicked wrist shot make him the most important player in his WHL team. And not only that, I wouldn't say just on his team, but maybe in the whole entire WHL, because he's a player with a complete package label on him that he can do it all. And, when I would talk to him at the combine, there was questions about his, goal scoring and production. He was not worried about that because he knows what he's able to do. And he said that, he wanted to work on his playmaking. Mission accomplished, because now he's going to be a dual threat as a shooter and as a playmaker. So, going to highlight him because he's going to be a very important piece for the Penguins.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of what you said there. I feel like he makes a lot of sense for the Penguins. Someone they can hopefully ease in soon because of his polished two-way game. Hopefully on the wing while Crosby or Malkin are still kicking and are still playing at a high level, which I expect them to for another 2-3 years at least in Crosby's case. Who knows? And then maybe once those guys move on, you can shuffle him to the center, and he can be a good player for you in the whole new era when you're starting to move on. But we'll see. Time will tell, but I like Yager a lot on his own, but also for the Penguins. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a good fit. Matt, what about you? Who do you want to talk about from this 50 to 41 group?
I'm going to focus on the guy just below Yager, and that's Riker Evans at Seattle Kraken. And man, did he explode last season. His first AHL season, 44 points in 71 games. And then in the playoffs, 26 points in 26 games. Point a game.
Yeah.
He really burst onto the scene as a top prospect for the Kraken. And his second round pick in 2021. So, it's not like he was a guy that everyone was like, oh, I don't know who this guy is. But he sure looks like a steal now in the second round at this point. It was an early second round pick, so maybe close to the first round. But coming off of WHL season where he had 61 points for the Regina Pats and then gets 44 in his first pro season. It's quite good. I mean, very skilled defenseman. At some points I always thought he was a forward, but the way he plays, he's one of the guys that Seattle's going to need in the future, because their defense is not very young. I mean, their high end guys are older guys. I mean, they need guys like Evans to come in and be top 4 defensemen. He sure has the potential to do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved what we saw from Riker Evans this year. He went from being like a really good junior player, more so defensively, and kind of has the whole leadership quality and just defensive game style. So it's kind of like maybe he's a third pairing guy, kind of a depth defender, but someone you like to have around, which is okay value for a second round pick. You're not super excited, but it's not a miss at all. That's an important piece still. But this year, he just showed so much more offense than I ever expected from him at the pro level. And he was a rookie. Mm-hmm. And like you said, those 26 points in 26 playoff games, that whole run for the Firebirds was really fun to watch. And he was a huge part of that. So honestly, he was one of the harder people to place on this list, because it's just like, you have to find the balance between, if he is a point per game AHL player at this age on true talent, and he can only just continue to build on that in the next few years, then he could be a top pairing guy in the NHL. If he's a little more like the player we saw for most of his junior career, then, maybe he's kind of righted the ship and he'll be somewhere in the middle. He'll be like a solid second pairing guy in the NHL. I don't know where he's going to land. So this is where he is for now. But he's very, very up in the air, could move either way pretty quickly. But really, really great story this year for Evans. And I hope it keeps going. I hope he can keep that momentum next year, probably in the AHL again. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. Next up, Matt, I'll come to you again right away here for 40 to 31. Who do you want to call out here?
Oh, it's a tough group because I love all these prospects.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to do it to you.
I am going to mention a guy I've not talked about in a while, Matthew Coronado. He is, if you watched way back in his draft year, I love this guy. I was drafted around the same spot where I ranked him, and everyone was like, why the heck are you ranking him so high? Well, he was drafted that high.
Really good.
I'm not going to stop tooting my horn about this one, but he's showed a lot since that draft year from college. Played a couple games in the NHL last season, I believe. I know he played at least one.
Right at the end.
Yeah, right at the end of the season. Not much to show. He looked fine. It's not one, a 30-game sample size is not the biggest, but he had a great sophomore season in the NCAA. 36 points in 34 games, over a point a game. I'm excited to see him potentially make the NHL this season and grab a spot out of camp. I don't know if there's a lot of room in that Flames, but he'll probably play in the bottom 6. But as much, he's so much skill, is great shooter, has a lot of offensive potential in the NHL. And just go back to any time I've talked about Coronado, I'm excited to see him play this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the Flames are in such a strange spot, period. But with bringing the young guys in, well, who knows where they'll all end up. Pelletier really established himself in the lineup throughout last season. I believe Coronado will do the same, but there's several other guys that are kind of fighting for those spots. Who knows? There could be more movement there, though, in the forward group, people wanting out. So might be some spots opening up. Who knows? Regardless, Coronado is just an excellent player, an excellent prospect. So I like that one, Matt. Peter, what about you? 40 to 31. Who would you like to talk about here?
I'm hoping this is the year that he could earn a spot, and that's Marco Rossi. Just one spot ahead of Coronado. And I don't understand. I think he probably could have made the roster, but I think the Wild probably just didn't see something. I don't know. But for him to come in as, a rookie in the AHL and put up 53 points in 63 games in 21-22, absolutely fantastic. And then last season almost matched that with 51 and 53. This is a guy that's a smart, dynamic two-way playmaker. This is a guy that can do a lot of damage and he can control the play. And you already have a bunch of like shooters and goal scorers and Kaprizov and Boldy, and you need some of those younger players to come up, and you need to find a spot for Marco Rossi because he is a special talent. He is going to be an important piece for them. And you even talked about it in your report about him, Logan, how his size doesn't deter him. If they're worried about the size factor, he is built. And, forget about the fact that he's 5'9". The weight and the strength that he has, especially in his lower body, he can handle himself very well. I remember like during the COVID years when he was starting to skate and we saw like, the training in his legs and everything like that. Like he's got muscle and he's got a lot of strength. So I'm hoping that this is the year where he's able to, push whatever narratives people have of him aside, and he's just able to pop off and just be an absolute force for the Wild, because he is very, very special. And I was a big fan of his in his draft year, and I still am to this point because I have that much faith in him.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's in such a difficult position with the Wild because they are a very competitive team, and they need centers. So you'd think this is the perfect spot, but it actually lines up in the weird liminal space where you're a good enough team that you're too scared to give like a real significant role to someone that's not proven in the NHL, which is fair to some extent. But you also desperately need him to develop into that player. So I feel like you gotta bite the bullet at some point because he's phenomenal. Like you said, he's built for someone his size. He's I can't remember if he's 5'9", 5'10" at this point. But he's pretty thick. He's built like a little fire hydrant. Like he's much harder to knock over than you would expect for someone of his height. Like good luck genuinely knocking him over. You're just gonna like flip over him by accident, maybe. I don't know. That might be clipping. That might be a penalty. But anyway, he's really great, and I really hope this is the year he breaks out, and I am confident that he will eventually because he works so hard and he's an excellent playmaker. I just hope this is the one. I hope this is finally the time that it clicks and it all comes together. From this range, I also want to mention. I'll be a homer here for once as one of the Red Wings writers here. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is in this range as well. He's looked really good in preseason action in the SHL and in a couple Champions League games to start the season. In 3 games, I think he has 2 points. But there's lots of examples of his skating and his hockey IQ, just evading forecheckers and just starting rushes all on his own, charging into the offensive zone. I think he's going to be a really fun player. He made it up here this far too. He's just 18 and he's had so many big roles in big tournaments and big leagues already. And he's better defensively than everyone gives him credit for. I'm going to keep harping on that because he's great offensively. We just assume he's bad defensively because that's just kind of the binary that we look at. Like you're either good at one or the other, but he's actually pretty good defensively for his size. He's definitely better than people give him credit for. So I want to shout him out. Okay, we're making our way up to the top here. These are some of the very, very best, really great prospects from here on out. 30 to 21. Matt, I'll come to you first. Who would you like to talk about here?
You probably think of who I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go Olen Zellweger on this one because I love I love Matthew Wood too, but I've talked quite a bit about that guy.
I thought you were going for Matthew Savoie.
So or him too. I mean, there's so many in there. I love Olen Zellweger though. He's sure emerged as an elite prospect in the end. I mean, probably one of the top prospects on the Ducks right now. At least on the defensive side, because he's got so much offensive potential in the NHL, could potentially even make it this season. And I mean, Peter already talked about Tristan Luneau. Zellweger is just part of this group. They just keep adding to their defense, and I don't know how all these guys are going to get the minutes in the NHL when they do make it. I think they may have to trade one of these guys, but Zellweger just has so much potential to score 50 plus points in the NHL, and has dominated since that Team Canada first time we saw him with Team Canada, and just dominated with them, and everyone was like, who's this guy? And well, since then he's just continued to dominate the WHL. I believe he won the best WHL defenseman this season, I believe.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, he's just so much excitement around this guy, and I'm really excited to see him be a dominant force in the NHL. I don't know about, probably not this season, but in the future.
Soon. Yeah. I'll mention he was also named the best defenseman in the whole CHL.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's pretty exciting. Just phenomenal skater. Just a really dangerous offensive player. Should be a lot of fun in Anaheim. Man, that team. I know we talk about it every couple episodes, but that team's going to be so much fun. I am scared for everyone who is a fan of Pacific Division teams, because they're going to be scary. Not next year, probably not the year after that, maybe not even the year after that. But eventually they're going to get they're just going to be terrifying. Just going to be a gauntlet going through Anaheim pretty soon. Hopefully the other teams there can keep up a little. Peter, what about you? Someone in the 30 to 21 range you'd like to talk about?
I had a feeling that Matt was probably going to take away my chances of the Anaheim Ducks hat trick. So it's a good thing I had a backup option. I'm going to pick Oliver Moore. Obviously, all the spotlight is on Connor Bedard, but let's face it, them nabbing Moore when they did was the best decision that they probably could have made, because there's your 1-2 punch up the middle for years to come. And it's absolutely impressive that there was all this talk that, is Oliver Moore better than what we expected because of the fact that he was playing, underneath that top line. And that was a very dominant top line for the national development team. But Oliver Moore himself was carrying that second line, and he was just as impactful, just as noticeable, and just as, as much of a standout as the other three players. And I think right now that the fact that he's going to get more opportunities away from them, I think is a good sign that the Hawks can see his growth and development, and the fact that he can still carry a line when, there's not as much overshadowing over him. There's going to be more of a spotlight on him. And I'm going to be interesting to see how he does in that, because I think he could rise to the occasion and live up to that potential and that hype as a player that can do it all and not just be, flying under the wings, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that really did go under the radar, that pick. I mean, we were all kind of like, how is he still on the board? Yeah. Because I know you guys had him pretty high, maybe right around the 10th overall range, right in that kind of area you guys were on him. And I kind of had him sliding a little bit towards the end of the year, but really great prospect, genuinely just an incredible skater. And yeah, it was kind of tough to tell, like, is he getting too much attention, not enough attention because of the guys that play above him? Would we like him a lot more if he had better line mates, or would we like him less if he played on the top line and he couldn't excel? Like, who knows? There's still a ways to go with that, but I feel pretty good that he's going to be an excellent player, and Chicago should be pretty happy with that one.
Little side note, he is going to the University of Minnesota. So the fact that they don't have Cooley, that they don't have Matthew Nyes there, Jimmy Snuggerud is still there, but where Oliver Moore is going to be in that lineup, he could definitely rise up if he continues to play well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of room for growth and for big minutes for him in the next year or two, maybe in the NCAA. That's a good one there too. Okay, we're into the top 20 now. These are it's just straight up elite prospects from here out. Like, these guys, for most teams, if this is your best prospect, you are thrilled. And several teams here have multiple in this list. So you're lucky, I guess. I don't know what to say. Matt, I'll come to you first. 20 to 11. Who would you like to talk about in this group?
Logan Stankoven, 18th in here. And man, the Dallas Stars, they're an elite team, and they've got elite prospects coming as well. Stankoven, I was hoping could make the opening night roster last season, didn't. went back to the WHL, and of course dominated the WHL. Over 2 points a game, and played the Memorial Cup. Unfortunately, the Blazers didn't win it, but very good prospect. Small, 5'8", but definitely doesn't play like he's 5'8". You go up against this guy, he's going to make it tough. He's not afraid to hit you. He's not afraid to get under your skin. I don't really want him to come to the NHL because the Canucks are going to play against Dallas, and they're already an annoying team to play against. And to have Stankoven in there, potentially for the next decade or so, is going to be not very nice to play the Stars. So, but I love watching him play. As long as they're not playing against the Canucks, I'll be watching Stankoven, and hopefully he's as good as he's been in the WHL over these past 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had to prove himself over and over and over again just because of his size. And he's done just that. Like, he was the only player that almost kept pace points wise with Connor Bedard last year in the WHL, which is that is saying a lot. Nobody could keep up with that. Only the highest of high end players could. And Stankoven was there with him. He played less games, or played fewer games, but he was phenomenal all year. And I really hope we see him in the NHL soon. I understand you don't want your teams to play against him, but man, it'd just be so gratifying to see him finally in the NHL. I know he'll make it, and I just can't wait. Can't wait until the day we see it. Peter, what about you? This 20 to 11 range, who would you like to talk about here?
I'm going to talk about Shane Wright. Obviously, it feels like a long time since there was all this hype surrounding him as a potential number 1 prospect, and only to lose it to Juraj Slafkovsky and then get pushed down, and then Seattle takes him 4th overall. But I'm so a firm believer in him. I think that there's in his draft year, he had 94 points, and everyone was saying that, he wasn't as dynamic and everything like that. And maybe, but I think he's kind of in that situation similar, or he had that situation similar to what Jaeger had last year, or maybe he wasn't as dynamic, but maybe he wanted to focus on another area of his game and be more well-rounded, even though he kind of already was well-rounded because he had good off-the-puck awareness. But jumping from league to league, NHL, OHL, AHL, he's obviously he didn't get the opportunities there. And also, as you mentioned, Logan, the NHL, CHL agreement, but he showed up in a short stint in 8 games for Coachella. He looked kind of decent in 24 playoff games in the AHL, looked really good in the OHL. I think this year, now the fact that he's going to be in one league, I think that's going to benefit well for him. And maybe that's going to put his mind at ease that, now this is my time to just continue growing, continue developing, and show Seattle and everyone that, that this team bet on me and he's going to try and prove everybody wrong. I think that's going to be a really good season for Wright.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's such a strange year for him. So it's almost not fair to drop him as much as I did, maybe. Just such a weird situation. Not being able to play in the AHL due to NHL, CHL agreement stuff. But that's not going to be an issue for him any longer. I'm actually not sure if he's eligible for the AHL on the regular rules, but I did hear that there's a kind of an under the table agreement at this point, that the CHL recognizes it makes no sense for him to come back next year. So I believe if he doesn't make the NHL team, he's still probably going to get approval to play in the AHL, which I think would be the best thing for him at this point. Unless he makes the Kraken out of training camp, which is possible. And I'd be happy to see that as well. Shane Wright's a great one to point out here. I want to mention before we get to the top 10, our last group, someone who I think is really underappreciated in the prospect world, and will only be more underappreciated because he's probably going to play at least on the team, but on the line with Connor Bedard. And that is Lukas Reichel. Hasn't got a lot of attention, maybe because Chicago was just atrocious last year. I think that's part of it. But ever since coming over from the DEL in Germany, where he was tearing it up as a teenager, 2 straight years, he's just scored a ton of points in the AHL. 57 in 56 2 years ago, and then last year 51 points in 55 games in the AHL. In the NHL, even, he had 15 points in 23 games last year. Like, he's on pace to get, over the course of a full season, probably slowing down, but maybe like in the 50 plus point range last season. And they just kept him out of the lineup because that was too good and they wanted to tank for Bedard, and it worked. But there's no way they can justify keeping him out of the lineup. He doesn't sacrifice defense to score that many points. He is a really hard back checker, forechecker, really exciting player. I have him at 12 here, which I've got a little bit of pushback from, but I don't care. I think he's phenomenal, and I think he's going to push 60 points next year, probably. Like, there's a world where he scores more points than Bedard next year, and that's partly because he's like 3 years older. But he's just like, don't sleep on Lukas Reichel. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player, and a really solid playmaker who could actually like build some good chemistry with Bedard, and that could be just a really fun dynamic duo, kind of like a full reset for Chicago, like back to the start of the Kane Taves years, where they just got like two brand new young stars to just start from scratch again. But who knows? I love Reichel. I think he's going to be a great player, so I've got him at 12. Finally, the top 10. These are guys that we've talked about for multiple years in some of their cases. And the next time I do this article, there's a good chance that at least half of this top 10 is not eligible for this list, which is insane. But Matt, I'll come to you first. Who do you want to give a shout out to in the top 10 here? I'm sure there won't be any names that we've missed over the last few months, but just someone you're interested in this year, maybe.
We have talked about all these guys many times, but I am going to focus on a guy that is not from this past draft class, because there's quite a few on this list that are. I'm going to go with Luke Hughes, New Jersey Devils, and we've obviously talked about him over the last few years, but he sure looks like the NHL, looks like the defenseman that we have been talking about that could end up being in the NHL. It's another high-end Hughes brother. And it's just, I've said this many times, it's amazing on how three guys from the same family aren't just okay NHLers, but elite. And not Hughes hasn't proven to be elite yet, but he sure looks like he is going to be. But all these guys are just like, how does that happen? I mean, they're all good, like top 10 type caliber players. But Hughes is just such a great skater, probably as good as Quinn, but bigger. He's also got that same type of hockey IQ. If you would just look at them, and if they were the same size, you probably think they're the same defenseman. But Hughes, I think, I don't want to say, like I've said, maybe Luke has a bit more offensive potential, but I don't really want to say that because Quinn has already put up 70 plus points and he's a 50 plus point guy. So I'm going to say probably he's going to fall into that same realm of being that type of defenseman. But man, the Devils have two defensemen in this list, Simon Nemec being the other one. Their defense is just stacked. So I'm excited to see Hughes in the NHL this season.
Yeah, you're right. It's just like unfair that the Hughes brothers are so good. They're all phenomenal skaters. Jack like truly established himself as like a superstar in the NHL last year, and I think he'll only keep getting better. Probably break the 100-point mark next season. Quinn has just continued to develop his two-way game, better offensively than he's ever been, better defensively than he's ever been. And now Luke's breaking into the league. Like, this could be one of the greatest like hockey families or NHL families ever when all is said and done on their careers. Like, they're this good and they're so young. It's absurd. I think Quinn is 23 or 24 and he's the oldest. So there's another 15 years of this. So strap in. There's a lot of Hughes brothers content coming your way for the next decade. Peter, what about you? Who's someone in the top 10 you want to give some attention to that they just so deserve? They don't get enough attention.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I'm not picking anybody in the top 5 because that would just be too easy. I'm I am going to pick Simon Nemec. Again, one of my guys. I've been a big fan of his. Wrote his profile. I thought that I think he may be one of the top prospects. Maybe he probably should have been taken ahead of Jaroslav Koski. I think that he may be the better Slovak out of that draft, but that's just me. Overall game, I mean, he's got the two-way mindset. He's very strong in transition. He can be aggressive still at times, but he's worked on, becoming a well-rounded player. And, 34 points in 65 games as a rookie this season or last season, very impressive. It's the fact that he was able to make such a seamless transition from Europe over to North America is great for his development. And the fact that, Matt already talked about Luke Hughes, this is a guy that's coming up that he's going to be a top pairing defender for them. This is a guy that has that mindset. I believe Luke is a left-hand shot. Nemec is a right-handed one. So if you're looking for that balance right there, there's your top pairing. So, yeah, nothing but great things to say about Simon. Really think that he's got a bright future at this point. I just think that, and again, I kind of talked about him quite a bit in the past as well, even before this season. But you know what? The fact that he's already succeeding and he could be in the NHL sooner than later is a very distinct possibility. So, yeah, shout out to Simon because he's definitely very promising at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wild that they've got two of the very best defense prospects in the league and one of the best defensive groups in the league out in New Jersey. I mean, Damon Severson moved on, so there's a spot that'll need filling. But I think that's a pretty good spot for Hughes and Nemec because they're not going to get thrust into a crazy high role right away, which, works out in some cases, but they can ease their way in and earn that time. Hughes is going to have a rough go eventually, like maybe in a year or two from now, taking over Dougie Hamilton's spot. Like that'll be a bit of a battle, which is a good thing. Nemec has a little less competition on the right side at the high end, which I think he'll get to. So he'll kind of stand alone on the side there, but just very exciting for Red Wings, New Jersey fans. Just super fun team already. And they're just going to get more exciting with these two great defenders here. Everyone else in this top 10, you could probably guess anyway. So I'm not going to waste any of your time talking about anyone else here. Connor Bedard is, you've heard a little about him. We'll just move on. That is the top 100. Please check out the article for lots of other guys. And if you're confused why someone is not on the list, again, just yell at me. It's my fault. It has nothing to do with the criteria or the fact that they're a goaltender. Just blame me and move on. Anyway, no, actually, Juraj Slafkovsky does not fit. He played too many NHL games. Don't at me. We're gonna close the show out as we always like to do here, talking about our prospects of the week. And this isn't actually a thing, but bonus points if you pick someone who's not on the top 100. I am not going to get bonus points, just FYI. Matt, I'll come to you first here. Who's your prospect of the week?
I get bonus points. I'm picking Vilmer Alriksson.
Nice.
Canucks prospect. I talked a bit about him before, but he's been in the news a bit. Playing in the preseason for the Guelph Storm, now in his first season in the OHL. Hasn't played regular season yet, but he does look really good in the OHL. He's had a few points. He's scored. Looks at home in the OHL, actually. So, I mean, I'm excited. This guy was drafted later in the draft, this past draft, and of course, Swedish. So the Canucks, of course, picked him. But he is a big guy. He's 6'6". One of the, and he's already shown that size in the preseason games that I've seen clips of. And yeah, I'm excited to see a full OHL season from this guy because he sure looks like he could be a top guy for the Storm this coming season in his rookie year. So keep an eye out for the prospect reports I'll be doing because he'll probably feature quite a bit throughout that when I do focus on the OHL because there's two guys in the OHL now that I can focus on, not just one, because last season there was two, but now I got Kudryavtsev and Alriksson to focus on. So keep an eye out because Alriksson, I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has a long way to go to get to this point, but there's some real Elmer Soderblom vibes. You can see it. Like the skating is above where you'd expect a 6'6", like 18-year-old to be at, which is promising. I mean, it took Soderblom a lot to go from a similar starting point in his draft year to where he's at now, but I could see it happening. So that's a fun player to watch for sure. I'm just going to reiterate what I said earlier about Jonathan Lekkerimaki. We've talked about the insane year he had last year, finished really strong, and it looks like he's starting strong, which is exciting because that means that we're going to get the player that that we all thought we'd see when he got drafted back in 22. Really just a great sniper. Maybe not going to produce the most other than like not give you the most value other than being an incredible sniper. But, you know, teams tend to like having those two sometimes. Goals are important. He looks great in the SHL, his first serious SHL play. It is preseason. Take it with as many grains of salt as you possibly can. But he looks pretty strong. Looks like the player that the Canucks thought they were getting. And he's been really easy to root for me. And I hope it just keeps going. Peter, off to you here now. Who is your prospect of the week?
I might get bonus points. I don't recall seeing his name there, but I'm going with Jager Firkus. Second
Bonus.
round pick in 2022. I can't believe I forgot the year there. Second round pick to the Seattle Kraken in 2022. Obviously, he had a good season last year. Looking at the numbers, 88 points in 66 games, another 21 in the playoffs. But, you know, it's a new season. And obviously, with preseason happening right now, he's played one game and he got 6 points. In the win against Swift Current, it was a 7-4. He was in on 6 of the 7 goals, 3 assists. I know it's one game. I know it's preseason and we shouldn't look into it, but it looks like Firkus is going to have a very big season for Moose Jaw. Obviously, if he has that kind of you know, an impact right away, again, preseason, small sample. If he's able to continue that throughout the year, we're looking at a guy that can easily crack 100 points because he was, believe, back-to-back 80-point seasons. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, or it's not out of the question that he could reach the century mark this season. So good start. Obviously, you know, when you get a 6 point per game average,
Not bad.
it's not that bad, but you know, I'm expecting a big season from Firkus, and he's my prospect of the week.
Nice. That's a good one. That just reminded me of on the opening night of the NHL regular season. There's this overplayed joke on the internet that I personally am a big fan of every time, even though it's super old and it's not that funny anymore. When someone scores like 2 goals in the first game of the season, everyone's like, so-and-so is on a 164 goal pace for the rest of this season. Like, that's what it feels like with, you know, 6 points per game after one single game. I just love that. It gets me every time. I know it's ridiculous and it's dumb and overplayed, but I love it.
It's
so
fun.
That's just what that reminded me of. I'll be doing that in October, no doubt. So just wait for me. I don't care about sample sizes. I'll just talk about anything. All right. Well, that does it for us this week. Thank you for sticking it out with us as we try to spread the love to some of the other prospects here we don't talk about quite as much. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Prospect Corner. Make sure you subscribe to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss any of our episodes. And also make sure you check out our site, thehockeywriters.com, for tons of NHL draft and prospect content. Thank you, Peter and Matt, as always. And thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of Prospect Corner. We'll see you next time.